it just all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, wait, what am I doing?
Yeah, there were just these micro changes. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it was like the stress of it. But I mean, like I say, it was making me sick. I mean, I was waking up in the middle of the night of like, oh, I forgot to do this or I have to do that. And I was pulling out my laptop and doing this work. And then, I'd go back to sleep. And when I was time to get up, I couldn't get up.
Welcome to the More Business, More Life podcast. Today I have my special guest, Michele Hession, and she is a physical therapist by trade, but now she's the CEO, founder of Be Active, Be Well, and has created an amazing business. And that's what we're going to cover, how she was, workaholic at a high level, like 7 days a week, working long hours when I met her, and now having the leisure of being able to travel. At one point, she did a vacation every month, and she's doing some significant vacations this year, growing even more. She's doubled her business and employed more people, helped more people with their physical therapy than ever before. How is this possible? How can she do more business and more life? That's what this show's about, and that's what we're going to uncover. So thanks for being on the show, Michele.
Hi, Steve. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've been wanting to do, an interview like this for a long time but it's even better now because there's even more results to talk about.
That's right.
Yeah.
More success.
So we waited for the perfect time. And speaking of that, just a highlight for people just getting to click on this episode or however you're listening to it, that you went from basically working almost 7 days a week, a lot in your car, because we'll get into what she does, but she's a in-home therapist, so traveling around in your car, but then you started hiring people, so then you're doing all the admin, and then at night you're working, and then, through the journey of change and a lot of the time that we were working together, you were able to, I remember that pinnacle moment where you're like, Steve, I'm taking a vacation a week, and the company's still growing. So to have that juxtaposition, like, if you were to just do a quick compare and contrast, like maybe, a few sentences where it was and where it is now, like how would you put that right next to each other for people listening?
Well, I am a physical therapist and I was seeing clients and then I realized my schedule was too busy, so I started to hire people. And the next thing I knew is that I was managing and literally just taking phone calls, pulling off on the side of the road, doing something with my calendar, calling my voicemail at home to remind myself, oh, do A, B, and C when you get home.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
seriously was working till 10, 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. I would often just spill clients over into the next day just so that, they would get seen. And I think there was some of that mentality of, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But then I didn't have enough of me, so I started hiring. And then I realized I can't do everything. And it actually made me sick. I mean, I was burning the candle at both ends, and I got just overexhausted. So I ended up hiring. And my first thing was, okay, I've got to hire. Well, first I got a P.O. box because I was losing people who pay me, write me a check, and I would put it in my back pocket, and it would go through the laundry.
Oh my gosh.
So, there's just these fundamentals of establishing what you need for a business. And I got an assistant and just got myself a little more organized and realized that I had to do less in order to have the energy to do well when I was on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you're at like half power and you're not, and that's a big topic. We can jump into that. So now you are working much less, actually bigger than ever. The company's bigger than ever. You're helping more people because not you, but like your essence, the whole company and all of your therapists are helping more people than ever before, more visits per month. And you're working and you're having more of the life you want.
Yeah, I work 2.5 days a week, physically seeing patients, and I have 30 therapists working for me, and the volume of visits is significantly more than it was when I was trying to do everything myself.
Yeah, beautiful. And we'll get more in detail on that, but those are some quick highlights. And you stay with us and listen or watch this, then you're going to find some details that made a significant difference in your life. So let's go back to who you are. So maybe just describe your business, Be Active, Be Well. And I guess, let's start there. Like just tell people your business just so they get an update of who you are and where, what you're doing.
So I am a physical therapist, but I see people in the home. So I don't have a clinic where they come to. I didn't want to have the overhead, the idea of having rent, and having to purchase equipment to supply for the place. I just was like, I want a low overhead. So I was working for a home health agency, and then some people asked me, well, can I hire you privately? And at first I was like, oh no, I have a job.
Yeah.
You can't hire me. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, I can. And so I see people in the home, which they're very flexible because a lot of them they're geriatric, they don't go out necessarily a lot. And so it's very, very flexible. And that was something that really drew me to this. Plus I enjoy the geriatrics. But then I recognized that they needed more than just a physical therapist. They should have an occupational therapist or maybe a speech therapist if there was some cognitive issues or swallowing issues. So I subsequently hired those other disciplines because they bring much more of a complement than just me alone.
Right. So then you're able to expand skill sets that weren't even your expertise, but then you're able to, as a collective, add more value. Mm-hmm. And there is value to go in the home too, because some of these people, it's really hard to go into a clinic. So, so this is like not just for your convenience. It actually is the convenience and the experience of the patient as well.
Oh, definitely. Either, they no longer drive, their children are from out of town. They get very flustered when they have to, I have to get up and get ready and get dressed and go somewhere. Yeah. And then by the time they get to the clinic, they're tired and it's hard to participate in the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took all of that. And I can relate to that when I was going through my being paralyzed. I remember everything was in home until I remember when I finally could walk with a cane and get in the car. It was kind of a success story, and then go see the acupuncturist that I wanted to see that wouldn't do in home. But, and that was a milestone moment, but it was a chore. It was like, oh my gosh, I have to leave. At the very beginning, it was a big deal to leave the house.
Yeah, and that's often we hope our patients graduate to go to an outpatient clinic. But we see them post-surgery. We see them, they've had a fall in the home, and then they're afraid to leave. They're afraid they're going to fall in the driveway.
Right.
And then it's also, the beauty of seeing somebody in the home is you can see them in their own home environment and really recognize this rug is a problem. Those stairs need to be repaired. The bathroom needs a grab bar. Where if they came to the clinic, I would never see those opportunities that we could address.
Yeah. So again, so much more value add. And that's what I always look at when I'm teaching businesses. What's the experience you want to have, and what's the experience that your clients want to have? And when that marries, like what you're saying right here, it just gels together and creates part of your success.
Well, and even during COVID, right? They were afraid. This geriatric population was afraid to go to a clinic where there might be all these other people. And so there was, we would go and we would test in the morning and wear masks, and that way they were comfortable with having somebody come to the home.
Otherwise, they would have no service, and
Correct.
Then they would just get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's beautiful. And I guess maybe one more step on that, since we're at this juncture, you did allude a little bit to the why, like it worked in your life, but is there like an even bigger, because even before this, you chose this line of work, even before you decided to do it out on your own. Was there a big calling in your heart? Did you stumble into this? Like what made you choose this, Michele?
Well, I ended up going into physical therapy because I knew I loved sciences and biology and anatomy, and I did well, in high school. And I remember saying to my sister how much I liked this, and she was in nursing school, and she said, "Don't be a nurse." And I said to my sister-in-law, who was a nurse, that I, really liked science, and she said, "Don't be a nurse."
Wow.
So I kept getting that message, and then I come from a big family, and so another sister-in-law said, "Well, I have a friend who's a PT," and I just met her. She sat me down, she told me all the different opportunities, because I always wanted to be in that helping profession and something with science. And she was able to say, you could go outpatient, you can do sports, you can do rehab, you can do, intensive care, in the hospital. There's the physical therapists are all over, pediatrics.
Right.
Yeah. So I realized, whoa, there's a lot I can do. And then I consider myself pretty lucky that I applied to college and as a physical therapy major at 18.
Wow.
And 40 years later, I'm still doing it,
Yeah, and happy about it and fulfilling. Oh, yeah. And, even that's the thing. Just for the record, I've been coaching Michele to stop seeing patients, and, you still absolutely love it. I mean, and yes, you're doing it a lot less, so that's what makes it workable. But there's a part of you, and I told you, Michele, and then for everyone listening, like, it's okay to do that. And even if you're not the main care facilitator of the patient, you can still go in there as the company owner, go be there, see what's going on. But I can tell already because I know you, and so just wanted to say this for everyone listening, that you do care. You're doing this because you want to, and not because you have to.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoy it.
Yeah, it's so good, and it shows, and that's why we thrive. That's why I always tell people, if you have a core purpose, your business is going to outperform anyone else that's just going to make a buck. It's just true. When you put people and the planet first, profits follow, and there's so much data in this, it's ridiculous. It's like so true. So it shows this, and then we can get so passionate about it that we get ourselves locked up. So coming to like the whole idea of what happened, you were having success, you're having more things. So you're like, oh, I need more help. So you just kept doing more and more and more because your heart was in it. So let's maybe go back so then we can kind of paint a journey here. You just kept adding and adding and adding, and it just kept taking more and more of you, right? Like how would you decide? Because I think it was like, it's like that. What is it? When you put the crab in the water and then you bring it to boil, they don't notice. I think, right? It's kind of like, I felt like that in your story, right? It just all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, wait, what am I doing?
Yeah, there were just these micro changes, and then all of a sudden it was like the stress of it. But I mean, like I say, it was making me sick. I mean, I was waking up in the middle of the night of like, oh, I forgot to do this, or I have to do that. And I was pulling out my laptop and doing this work. And then, I'd go back to sleep. And when I was time to get up, I couldn't get up. I was
Wait
exhausted.
a minute. So you woke up in the middle of the night and actually, I don't even know if I knew this.
Yeah.
You got up, got your laptop, did some work and went back to bed? Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
Which isn't healthy.
No.
I mean, you need a good night's sleep. And sleep deprivation really can take a toll.
Oh my gosh, Michelle.
But
I knew you worked late, but I didn't know you jumped on the computer in the middle of the night.
But I also think there was this, I was missing systems, right?
Yeah.
And once I learned that, it was like, okay, this same problem keeps coming up. I got to figure out what's the answer for it. And also what you taught me about the whole grief and gain.
Yes.
Right? Is finding out, okay, well, what's the grief here and how can we fix it so that it becomes a gain?
Right. Well, yeah, a grief can become a gain. And also in that, the other layer, like whenever, if you come and you're in business and there aren't any griefs, then it's like, what do we want to gain? So you could also flip it, the question on that. But it is, what that does for everyone that's never heard that before, it's giving you one thing at a time. Because when we think of systems, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, even CEO founders that come into a business that started operating, we think we're going to overhaul major systems. We have these big ideas, and then sometimes we can delay the activity. Whereas if you pick one thing, and focus on that one grief, then you overcome it, then you do the next and the next. So that's the idea behind that. And it actually is a great tee up. So when we met, you were working 7 days a week. And I remember that, and you even showed me a picture or something. Or maybe we were on a video call. You showed me your car, and I just remember papers all over the seat next to you. It was literally an office car. Like you literally had an office in your car.
Yeah. Oh, I still do, but it's much more organized, and I'm not in it 6 days a week.
Yeah. Because that's what happens. Then it's chaos because if one thing stacks on top of another, there's no time to organize or clean. So that's what I remember with you, and I remember how stressed you were. Do you remember what one of the first things was that made a difference? Or if you don't, then we can just start looking at some of the things that you started to change as we work together.
Well, again, it was down to systems. It was like, okay, well, one, I have to get a P.O. box. That's just kind of where people send stuff. Because I didn't have a physical address. That was my business address.
Right, because you're going
and I didn't want
to
it to go to my home because, I don't know, I didn't want people necessarily to know my address, in the beginning.
Yeah.
So there's little things like that, getting the business bank account, having conversation of just how you categorize different stuff. I mean, as a physical therapist, you take a lot of science classes and you have labs and you have anatomy. You don't take any business classes. Yeah. So that was really just kind of learning on the fly.
Yes.
So kind of doing that in the beginning was really helpful. And then basically hiring somebody that I could pay, less than I would pay a therapist, but who could do admin stuff.
Yes.
So getting QuickBooks was also, just another step. And I think too, recognizing that sometimes you have to have certain expenses that are that's the cost of doing business.
Yes.
Yeah, and accept that.
Yes. And then add that into your price. So I know since we work together, quite a few price increases.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, in the beginning, because it was just like, well, okay, my services, I want to be able to earn so much money. But then it was like, okay, well, now I got to pay for all these other things.
Yeah.
And now I've got a website. There's just the kind of this constant expense. But it's all good. It's all been worth it. Yeah. And I would do it again.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And so what would you say if we break a few milestones? So, okay, so one, getting some and by the way, too, just to also say, you're not alone in this. Like, I mean, I've worked with, even professions like lawyers, doctors. I mean, even you could be a baker. It doesn't matter. When you're the practitioner or the craftsperson and you've gone to school and you've been highly educated in that and you're an expert in that field, it doesn't make you a businessman or woman. That's a whole nother set of learning. And you're totally right. Much of the education system, almost all of them, you go learn this profession and then you go out and you can go get a job and then plug into a system. But many of these, like lawyers, especially, and other professionals, even architects, whatever, a lot of them will go try to start their own firm and then struggle because no one taught them how to run a business.
Right. Yeah.
So you're naming off some things, and someone listening might think, wow, that's so simple, right? But it's a lot of little simple things. There are many simple things. And so then it's kind of finding the one that makes the most impact. Early on, if you can let your mind go back, can you remember one of the things that you think made the most impact of relief? From that time that you met me and then you were working that many hours, can you recall, if there was one of the significant ones that started giving you more life back?
Well, it was definitely hiring a bookkeeper,
okay,
right, to manage that. Because then if there was monies that were past due, I mean, I'm so busy working that I'm not sure if Mr. Smith's paid his bill or not,
Yeah.
And I just want to deliver the therapy. So it was nice to have someone who makes the phone call that says, you're 60 days in the rear and, where are we at? And, can we help you with this? And so that was significant because that just helped the cash flow.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, there was times when I would say, I won't take a paycheck because the cash flow was just not proper. So once I hired somebody who could chase some of the outstanding accounts, that was helpful.
So the ebbs and flow, like that whole up and down would not be there. It would be more constant. And then you can keep paying yourself every month.
Oh, yeah. And now I do. And
Yes.
so now I pay myself a given amount. And it doesn't matter how much I work. I could take a month off and I still get that given paycheck.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know that it's coming because consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautiful contrast right there. How does that feel to know that now, that you don't have to skip a paycheck, you're getting paid and that this has been working?
Yeah. I mean, it just takes a load off your shoulder. It's definitely a lot more, the sense of freedom, that if something were to come up or if my son were to say, hey, Mom, I want to do something, next weekend, I'll take Friday off and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And I'll do something with him,
That's so amazing, right? And so it's just so in a big scheme of things, it was taking one system at a time, one grief and changing it into a gain, and then growing and growing into the point. I can't remember. Do you remember what year that was? Was it 2018 or 2017? I can't remember, where you took a week vacation almost, approximately every month.
I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
And some of it was 2 weeks in a month, and then some of it might have been a long weekend.
Okay.
But it was once a month that I did something. And many of these they included, it was a trip. Like I went to New Zealand, I went to New Orleans twice. I went to Maine, to New England. I went up to Vancouver for a long weekend. Yeah. So I just had 12 different vacations.
And before, which is highly significant. I mean, this is beautiful because when I met you, there's no way. I mean, I want you to say, because I'm only saying from my picture of you, I don't even know if that would have been in your mind that it was even possible.
Correct. I would say that had thought that it wasn't possible, that I have to see people. Well, one, I was working 6 days a week, and sometimes patients can get kind of needy, and for them to say, oh, no, you have to come every Saturday, and I had this standing Saturday afternoon group of clients that I would see. And it became, it was kind of depressing, you know what I mean? To wake up in the morning on Saturday and go, I have to work this afternoon, so that I really couldn't do anything else. I couldn't have fun because it was like I had to be ready to go to work in the afternoon.
And now that dream of you helping people, the thing that you absolutely love, and I know you love, because now we're getting to the point where you probably shouldn't see any patients logistically for your business, and you still want to.
Yeah.
So here, I'm highlighting this really loud. The thing that you love, now you're like, Because it's so much, because you go to the wit's end. You're like, okay, I have nothing left to give.
Well, that's what it was. I was just overbooked. So I've gotten better at setting some parameters, setting some guidelines. And I find that using the words, well, the schedule doesn't allow, because it's not so much me saying no to them, that I just say, my schedule doesn't allow. They don't need to know that I block off Saturday and I just don't work on Saturday anymore.
Yeah. Well, and even this is proven in many of my clients and even in other data points and other literature that your work goes up. The quality of work. Yes, the quality of your work. Thank you for saying it. Because when you're at that point, then how is Michele showing up? And even though you're still doing a good job, and because you have a level of excellence already that you had a standard to, but how much better are you when you're fully rested?
Oh, way better. No, on my toes, able to immediately say to somebody, oh, yeah, you strained your intercostal muscle when you did that,
Yeah.
Yeah. And for them to go, really? I go, yeah. And then we'll do some treatment and then they feel better. Because, but when you're tired or you're thinking, oh, I didn't return that phone call. I haven't checked my email in over a day. You know what I mean? And you've got that going on in the back of your head,
Yes.
It's hard to be in the moment with the client.
Yeah, or if you're going back to your office in the car thing, you're finishing in the office and maybe you didn't finish and you had to go do the patient because you had a set time and then you're leaving that work. How many times are you going in to see the patient and you're still thinking about the car work?
Yep,
right?
Totally.
I mean, these are real things and you're doing the best that you can. But now it's so much better when you don't have to do that. You can be 100. So what I'm hearing is then you can be 100%. If I'm with a patient, I'm 100% there. If I'm in the office or you're working with your team, you can be 100% there.
Right.
Or if you're playing with your kids.
Yep, 100%
Or you could be 100% there.
Right. So designating an office day was also another real turning point. We only invoice on a monthly basis. So always around the first, I would block off time, where I wasn't doing that before. If the first fell on a Wednesday and I was busy seeing clients, I would typically stay up late Wednesday night doing the invoicing.
So you could still see patients the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I block time off and, I go ahead of time. And then the idea that I block segments of, oh, this is when I meet with my assistant. This is when I make these follow-up phone calls. This is when I review, different aspects of my business.
I think I'm just remembering a moment when we were coaching and I was with you that, because I had worked with this accounting firm prior to working with you, and the woman that did all the payroll for all their clients, she would do that and it would take her like 2 or 3 days. Remember that story? Mm-hmm. And because that way this all came about, I said, tell me about your week. And she said, Monday is horrible. Then Tuesday gets worse. And the week goes downhill from there. And I'm like, what happened? She's like, well, I start the week doing payroll for all of our clients and I'm getting continually interrupted. And so it's just a nightmare. And I need to do payroll correctly. And if like someone has deductions or they have child support and I can't mess up. Right. And anyway, then I made the suggestion. I said, what if you only do payroll and no one distracts you? And at first it was completely like, no. It was like, the reason I'm doing this is because it was 2 partners, 2 women. One did business development, went and got the business, and the other one was the actual accountant. And she's like, I'm the accountant. I have to answer the phone. I said, no, you don't. Mm-hmm. I was like, how many people are dying if they wait 24 hours to get their accounting, right?
Well, and I often say that. People don't die if they don't get physical therapy.
Yeah. But we act like they did.
Yes, I know.
Right? I mean, I've done it too. Like I'll be making a commercial for a client and I'm acting like someone's going to die.
Yeah.
I did that. I created my own sense of urgency as a better customer service, right? I thought I was giving a better service to them by doing that. And so I think I remember telling you that story and you're like, wait a minute, I could take a day just to do the accounting? Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah. And I learned all this too because it's not picking on any one thing. I did the same things. That's why I teach this stuff now.
Right. And I just think if they'd offered some business classes when I was in college, that would have been helpful.
And the thing is they still don't really do this. It's wild. So the results it came pretty quickly for you, I think. Like, I mean, you implemented, and also this is a team event here. Like I always tell people, like I've seen now over, 30 plus years, like we have these decades of experience and I bring that experience and I bring those ideas like from one client to another, just like we were talking about from the accounting firm to bring that to your firm. At the same time, we are we're figuring these things out and we can share these. And so when I share that with you, you also have to do it. And so the only reason we're here on this show right now is because you did that. So our teamwork allowed this to work, to make this happen.
Right. I've always considered myself, I do well if you give me homework. But I think what was happening of just being my own small business owner, I didn't know what homework I needed to do. You know, you need direction on, okay, well, start here. This is the next thing. And so having some direction, gave me small successes. Oh, I need to do this first, and then I get it done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a moment in there that you said, wow, this is like working? Or was it all the way to when you were taking all those big vacations? Was there, do you remember a moment where you're like, oh, this is a big relief? I'm just curious if there was like.
Well, I think that year that I did the vacation thing, it was a very conscious effort, and I wasn't sure I could pull it off, but it was kind of a New Year's resolution kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just have more fun because I wasn't having fun.
I think it was plan your fun first.
Yeah.
That whole concept. I told Michelle, I said, okay, we got to plan the fun because otherwise you're not going to do it. You're just going to keep putting more people on your calendar.
Oh, yeah, totally overwrite my free time.
Yeah.
And then my motto became, if I get invited somewhere, I say yes. Unless I'm like, I don't know, sick and I can't make it. But if I get an invitation to go somewhere, I'm going to say yes.
Meaning you're talking about like leaders, so like, oh, come to this party or this thing. You're
party,
saying?
Go listen to music, a wedding invitation. That year I had a wedding invitation that was in New Orleans. And think about it, I live in San Francisco. And to get there, it was kind of a big deal. I had to take time off.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what, I'm going. I tell you, we talk about that wedding. It was such a fun weekend. And I just saw the married couple on my summer vacation. And we talked about how much fun that wedding was. And to think that I even thought of not going because, I got too much work, taking time off. Yeah. So making that conscious effort, I think after the fact, it made me realize, you can do this.
Yeah.
People don't die if they don't get their physical therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, increasing my staff, I was able to get people to see my clients when, I give them the option. Do you want to be seen while I'm away, or we'll just put things on hold?
Yeah, and now business continues without you.
Yeah.
So then it's happening, which is the dream, right? Then it's a machine. The business itself becomes like a rental property where you can have those rents, but it's not just the money because it goes back to the mission. You're actually caring for more human beings, and actually to a point where it's impossible. Like the level your business is at now, there's no way Michele could do that as one person.
No.
Right? Like
no.
it's impossible. So you're at a whole nother level. I'm pretty sure you're double the point that I met you.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Or is it more? Or do you think like, I know at least double, maybe 3 times the amount of patient load?
Oh,
maybe?
I'd have to go back and look
I know,
at
I might
it.
not
But
know, but it's definitely double.
Yeah, the numbers are way up there.
Yeah.
And also another thing that was important is that I was seeing the agency visits, which was a lot of paperwork, and the reimbursement was less, and that we had 20% was our private pay. And now our private pay is 85% of our business. The agency is 10% of our business, and hospice patients are 5% of our business. And the therapists are just much happier. The private pay clients are a lot easier to deal with, and we don't have all like the Medicare requirements and the paperwork and whatnot. And I had one other therapist again say to me today, I've decided I won't see any more agency patients. And it's just, it's not fulfilling.
Yeah.
The demands of the office saying, you didn't cross this T, you didn't dot this I. So that was another thing that we really worked on, was to the ow and the wow.
Yes.
And that it was very frustrating working with these agencies and the demands that they put on us. That it was like, okay, I got to bring that number down, and we have to see more private pay.
Yep.
Yeah. So just, marketed to the different groups that would open that door. And
I still think, and maybe we should talk about this for a moment. Wow, clients. There's so many lessons in More Business, More Life and the whole philosophy, but I probably would say you're not the only client that really highlights wow clients. It is one of the, and it is the most asked speech that I've given around the world. Mm-hmm. I've got to do it in Africa, Europe, and New Zealand, Australia, all around the United States and Canada. And the reason I bring it up is it's that big, but it's easy to look over. And a lot of times it's fear too, because we're in business and we think, oh, I have to take any client that I can to stay in business. And I do remember that moment, there you are, and just hitting your numbers, so you were 20% private and 80%, having to deal with all the insurance or getting reimbursements through the clinic work. You now have more than flip-flopped that.
Yes.
And it's by a choice. It's by saying, okay, I'm only going to work. And I was probably in those things. I'm like, okay, who's your wow client? And you're like, oh, it's these private pay ones that we have only a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've completely
it's completely.
So to the people that have never heard of this, right? They're listening to this for the first time. They haven't seen me talk about wow clients. What was it like? Was it like freaky to say, oh, wait, I'm just going to ask for this? Or did it come in to you right away? You're like, no, this is what I want. Or how did you, if you can go back in that time, do you remember what it was like to say, wait, I could choose? Or like what?
Well, I think I had to recognize to not say yes to every single phone call I got,
Okay.
or every single text or every single email or request I can't say yes to everything. So started to delineate, okay, well, this diagnosis we're not going to take, or this geographical area, because sometimes it was just too far. And if we have to travel, for 45 minutes to get to somebody's house, it kind of doesn't make it worth your while.
Yeah.
So I started, doing some limits. Yeah. And then reaching out to people, I went to concierge doctors, I told case managers, I just put it out there. Hey, we're seeing people privately. And plus I had worked a while in the community, so I let other therapists know that used to be my coworkers, that, hey, I've got this going on. This is my new gig, to increase the private pay. And I think also when you just have a happy, satisfied customer, they tell their neighbor, they tell their daughter, who then tells her neighbor, and then her parents call you, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was part of it. And I also had the experience of, there was one time I was sick. I had to have surgery. And I had told this client, I have a therapist who can come see you. She said, no, it's okay. I'll wait till you come back. Well, I was taking 8 weeks off.
Yeah.
So what does she do? She calls me 2 weeks after my surgery and says, well, how are you feeling? You've been thinking about you. I was hoping you could just come and see me. You don't have to see all your clients. Just come and see me. And, I thought, okay, that's really callous.
Yeah.
That's pretty selfish. I had surgery and you're not better in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I needed that 8-week recovery. And I thought, she's an owl. And even though she was private pay, when I finished my disability and I, went back to work, I didn't call her.
Yeah.
I thought, what? I don't need somebody like that in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you start making decisions for you. And then you, like you said, the reward is high. A lot of times we're scared. So many business owners, they're really scared. They think, I'm in business I got to survive. I got to pay the bills. But then when we realize that when we work with WOW, everything flourishes.
Yes.
And it's the 4 R's I always say. You get more results, right? Because you're in that WOW. You're going to have a better result with them. They are having their excitement. Then that leads to more repeat business because they want to keep working with you, which leads to more raving fans because they're going to go spread. And then you get more referrals. So the 4 R's you just shared in your story, that even though it's scary at first, it actually can
it
grow.
opened another door.
And then look, now you're completely flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also did, some mindset stuff in the sense of, I actually created, on my computer, I have a folder for private pay, and then within the folder, everybody has their individual. I created some blank folders because I was creating space.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And then the thing of, I kept saying, we live in a world of abundance. We really do.
Yes.
We really do. That the more I thought in that scarcity, then I would take anything that came my way. Now it's to the point the phone can ring and I can have an interview with somebody and I can realize that's not a client that's a fit for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be kind to them. I make suggestions and I can refer them elsewhere. But I recognize that my staff won't be happy seeing this person.
Yeah. And, it's not saying anyone's bad or good. What I found is they're just for somebody else.
Yeah. Their needs, their problems, their demands that I think it's not quite a fit for the group that we have.
Yeah. And it could be logistical, like geographic, like you said, it's too far away, or maybe it just doesn't fit with your staff.
Or even diagnosis.
Yeah.
That I'll be like, you'd be better served with somebody who has a certification in this, and I'll steer them. I'll give them a name and number to go somewhere else.
Yep. It's beautiful. And it makes a better life. And then now here you are, not having to worry about those things or wondering when you're going to get paid because private pay is more I would say fast and consistent.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right?
definitely. Oh, yeah, the agency, they're usually 3 months in the rears
Yeah.
of paying.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot with the private pay clients, they don't like this idea of having this outstanding bill. You know, I mean, sometimes they'll call me, we invoice monthly on the first, but sometimes it happens on the second or the third, depending on when the first falls and,
Yeah, if it's a Saturday.
yeah, and my bookkeeper wants to do something on the Saturday, so we'll do it on, Monday. People will call me and say, I didn't get my invoice. Like they're worried that they missed it and they want to pay.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, what a difference. What a difference. And so now having shifted to your wow clients and having this and the way that it is now, what is having that do for you?
Well, I would just have to say there's a lot less stress, that I'm able to, like this morning, I walked my dog at the beach and I have to have a little work done in my house. I met with the contractor where it was just, I had the day that I could just get stuff done. I went to Costco.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of freedom to just take care of stuff that's life.
Yeah, you're living.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So and then
exercise,
Yes.
I've also added yoga back in. Yoga's always been something that where I hang my hat. That's what makes me feel good. And I've been going to yoga 3 times a week.
Awesome.
Yeah, where before I was working too much, I couldn't do it.
Right.
I would skip my yoga class. I would schedule a patient in that time. Not anymore. I just simply say, oh, my first appointment is 10:30, so that I can do my yoga. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and you don't even have to tell them that. But
Oh
you
yeah, I
tell
just say that's my first appointment.
first
Yeah.
appointment. And putting your life first is kind of the essence of this, right? Designing what you want in your life. Then what are the results from that now? Now that you have that, you put yourself in the first position in your calendar and then you open up to others. What would you say are the highlight results, or if there's one big one?
Well, one, my health is better. I'm no longer waking up in the middle of the night completely stressed and doing work. I have a good night's sleep.
That's
so then the
beautiful.
next day I'm just functioning better. And I just have more fun. I have a dog that I spend a lot of time with. I just came back from a 10-day vacation. I'm planning another 3-week vacation at the end of September, early October, out of the country. So I had those kinds of things where I can dream. I can be like, oh, this is something that I really want to do. Last night, a bunch of girlfriends, we just went out to dinner, and then we decided we're going to make it the second Tuesday club, that the second Tuesday of every month we're going to go out to dinner.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. So just all these things.
It's easier to have fun.
Yes.
Like before I'd be like, oh, gosh, I got to call this person, or I'd be constantly looking at my phone. I got to answer that text, or it's a lot less stressful.
Yeah. Because then when you're doing that and you're constantly on, you're never recovering and you're deteriorating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
No.
Yeah.
And then you lose even something like you, someone that's so passionate. You start losing that sight of why you did this in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you start to not like your job anymore.
Yeah.
And it becomes a job.
Yeah.
Not a profession, not a calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you have that feeling back that you're doing this good in the world and you're living your life.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's beautiful.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Are there any other challenges that come to mind that have been overcome or that were big highlights other than what we've already discussed?
I get, I would say hiring, that's been a challenge because sometimes you think somebody might be a fit, and then after you work with them for a while, it's like, oh, their philosophy is a little bit different than mine. So managing, has been kind of a challenge. But I find that if I just treat everybody with respect and I treat them the way I would want to be treated if I was an employee of a company.
Yep.
And I think being a therapist and owning the company, it's different than just being like a business owner owning the therapy company.
Right. Because you can relate.
I can relate, and I understand.
I've done it. I've been there with a patient like that.
Yeah. So like we just had a request that they want us to go Monday morning at 7 a.m. to see this client. Okay, that's a big ask.
Yeah.
I'll pay them more to go do it. You know what I mean? It's like to just recognize that, okay, we want to do this because we want the referral source to be happy. And so they're going to say, hey, Michelle is
accommodating.
Yeah, She responds quickly, and they want to do this because it's when he gets out of bed and his routine in the morning, and you know what, we're going to make it happen, and I'll just pay them more to do it because I recognize that's a big ask.
Right.
You know, I just don't tell somebody you have to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now there's longevity, because one of the things, and I always say, recruit, train, and retain. And so that's in that retention part, because if we didn't do that, we're losing sight of the human aspect. Then all the things that we just talked about, you having like a better life, we're demanding it to be taken away from the people in our organization. So the same thing, like you're saying, treating them in a good way, like, so how do they want to live their life? But someone might be a super morning person and totally love that. Be like, I love 7 o'clock appointment. Who knows? Like, because again, you have a large team now, so there's going to be someone that absolutely might love it, and there might be someone that's like, nope, no morning appointments for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so I just put it out there.
Yeah.
And, if we can staff it, it'd be great. And I think there's also that aspect of hearing them, like when they feel like that they need time off, or they're feeling a little burnt, that, I'm always take care of yourself. Yeah. Do what you need to do. Take a long weekend so that next week you're 100% back. Yeah.
Yeah. And minding recovery. I mean, actually, your work is in recovery, right? Like physical therapy is part of recovering, whether it's a surgery, an injury. I mean, so many different things, or lifestyle, like just not even moving properly.
Right.
You bring all those things in. And then in a way, that's where we get so caught up in it. Like there's part of you not taking care of your own recovery. And so a big part is we took a big, overarching word in everything that we talked about. It was you taking care of you. Because, what I'm here, like just some bullet points of what we've already discussed, you planning your fun first, you taking your priority to your life. And that includes the health aspects like the yoga and different things, or just going on a walk with your dog. I mean, that's all life-giving. Then also working with the WOW clients and only those WOW clients, and knowing where to draw the line. Again, life-giving, but then also not only did it give you more life, but it also prospered more. It grew the business. And then the systems, right? Like having the right person do the right job so that you didn't have to do all of it, and having a team. So then again, same thing. Gives more life, and you're even giving life to others, because now you're giving a livelihood to someone else.
Exactly. No, it actually makes me feel good to think that, I've hired this woman. She's earning a decent salary, and she wanted a job that was remote, which I don't have an office. She's got to work from home.
Right.
So I supply her with the laptop and the phone, and, and it's wonderful. And it's exactly what she needed, because she's taking care of an elderly father, and she can't leave the house, basically. And so this is what she was loving. And I like the fact that, she's able to earn her own income.
Right.
Yeah. And she enjoys it. She likes what she does. She's ultra, how can I say this? Attention to detail, likes things very organized. So she actually sets me straight. Michelle, did you do blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, oh, thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, right. Well, it's such a great thing. I know I need to be managed as well. I know. That's beautiful. So many life-giving things. Are there any other results that you can think of that we didn't highlight out of those that I know those are some big ones, but what other results have you found in your life since we started working together?
Well, I think just the team that we developed, trying to instill some of those taking care of self with them, that, I had a party recently where I invited all the team members to come, and they really support one another. Another example, this morning, a woman called in sick with COVID, one of my therapists. 4 or 5 other therapists just jumped in. Oh, I'll take that patient. I'll see this guy. I'll see this person. If I can see them Thursday instead of today. And so they jumped in to help because they recognized that, this other person would do the same. So it's nice to have that culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I remember too, earlier on, if that happened, it was you.
Oh, totally. It was me that would jump in and see the patients. And there was a time when I would see 10 to 12 people in a day, and I spent 45 minutes to an hour with each person. They were long.
Over 12-hour day.
Oh, I know. They were long days.
That really puts the picture heavy. So 12 hours with patients, and then you weren't done because you had paperwork.
Correct.
So really, we're talking 16.
Right. And so now my rule is 4 clients is my sweet spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
A third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I find that's important because, I do need to return calls, check my
course.
email, that kind of thing. And if
Which you would have done in the middle of the night.
Yes, I would have.
So
Yeah.
so you can actually do it in the regular workday.
Yes. Yeah, and to hear somebody say, "Oh, thank you for calling me back so quickly," you get mileage off of that.
Yes, it's something you wouldn't even be able to do.
Well, in the past, years ago, I can remember I got a phone call. Somebody was inquiring about services. I was so busy. I was running late. I had to get to my next client. I had to do the treatment. I didn't call him back 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours later, till I had a little bit of a break. And the first thing he said to me, he said, "Hey, it's Michelle. I'm returning your call. You asked about therapy for your dad." And he said to me, "You snooze, you lose.
Already got something.
You didn't answer your phone. You weren't the first one to call me back." He goes, "I already booked with somebody else."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's 2 or 3 hours.
I know.
It's not like 2 or 3 days.
I know.
And it's still gone.
But people call in like a situation of urgency.
Yeah.
My dad fell yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned. He's afraid. I want somebody to come out. Let's, what kind of assistive devices he need. And he needed somebody right away. And I didn't answer the phone because I was too busy.
Yeah, you couldn't.
Yeah.
What are you going to do while you're on with a patient? Yeah, not. And some people might do that, but that's not going to work well because then the patient's going to feel like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What's going on here? So, wow, this is what a drastic contrast of where your life is now and where you are. And then again, to say that you're actually helping more people.
Yes.
Like you're actually having more appointments, you're taking care of more lives, you have more physical therapy happening, and you're only doing 2 days, 2.5 days seeing patients, so not 6 days a week of patients. I mean, this is big.
So I started with, I took one day, I took Wednesdays off, and then I took Tuesdays off, so it was a gradual progression over time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you did it. And it's so beautiful. I mean, it brings me so much joy to sit here with you because I can remember your face and how much, you just look so relaxed right now. You're glowing.
Yeah.
And I just remember the stress and even some of the papers. I think one of the first meetings you had like a stack of papers. You're like, "Oh, that's for my paper." You're like, moves away. Like in the meeting, like it came out of your car. You're like, "Oops, I got the wrong button."
Yeah.
Like I remember. It wasn't like a crazy. I'm not trying to make it like a messy thing. Okay, a little bit, but I can remember that energy. You're like, "Oh, I got to do that." You were even, I think, at the beginning of one of our first sessions, you're like, "Oh, hold on, Steve," and then you wrote down some things you had to do.
Yeah.
Because you were literally working until you got to me.
Oh, totally. And I would often have to, and then I had all these scraps of paper that I had to like get it out of my brain and write it down, and then it was, where's that scrap of paper? I mean, there was just too much going on. There were too many moving parts.
And that's why it brings me so much joy to sit here with you, so relaxed, and like to know you just had your day, you walked on the beach, talked to a contractor, went to a little shopping, and then came here to have an interview with me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have even been a part of your life.
Oh, no, I would have told you I didn't have time.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'm seeing patients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then I guess so this is a celebration that we actually get to do this interview and we get to sit here and talk as long as we'd like and have this moment. What a milestone.
Mm-hmm.
What a milestone. And we're just bouncing back and forth because we're talking about before and after, kind of back and forth, and that's good, and the changes. And we even already did this, so we've covered a lot of ground on my notes here because I also put, but maybe we can bring this back up. The specific tools and techniques or lessons. I know we talked about WOW clients. I know we talked about grief and gain. Just one thing at a time. Are there any other lessons that came from our time together that stand out as a significant change for you?
Well, I think it was just acknowledging that, there's certain things that are the cost of doing business. Like you have to put money out there to in order to make money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, we got our hands on an app that just was HIPAA compliant, and the information that we can put on there is just amazing. Then we got another app where it was time tracking, and I think way back I would be like, that's going to cost money. You know what I mean? There was this, I don't know, I couldn't fathom that there's a cost of doing business.
Yes.
And once I recognized that we're going to get it back, and then I have clients, my therapists who say, man, I love that timekeeping system. And for payroll, it's so much easier, right? Because everybody puts it in. Yes. Yeah.
Because you're making it happier. So I didn't mean to jump on you, but that's where you're adding, and then you just add that into the price of doing business, so that comes into your end price. Mm-hmm. But then you're able to serve people better. You're able to have more cohesive team. They're all happy.
Well, and also with the bigger team we have, I mean, that cost is distributed, you know, our larger clientele. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're big enough that it's not being passed on to just a handful of patients. It's like it's distributed.
Yeah, like, so if you add $1, it's significant over a lot of you know, and when you do products, it would be a unit, but it could be a unit of service. So you have all these service items, and then it multiplies, and so it's okay. So it's absorbed into the work. The patient can afford it. You are then able to do this good work, and it's even going to hiring, right? So it could be software, but it could also be people. Right. Because even that, like hiring someone, but then it makes for more efficiency. I think these things that you're talking about, they're investments more than a cost. Because when you make those, that's how I would vocabularize it. You know, you're making those investments, then you're able to, then all these things became true because now you can serve more people, you're doing more what you love, and you're living more of the life because you made those.
Oh, and it actually is less work. You know, because we can just, everything's within the app, and people could, because people would call and say, oh, I don't have the phone number for the son for that patient. And so I would have to stop and pull over and go through all my papers and whatnot. And now it's all in the app. Yeah. You know, they know where to look. They don't even bother me to ask for that question because they can find the answer themselves. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I'd have to say, you know, another thing that's really very rewarding is when clients that I haven't even seen, but they'll reach out to me to say, oh, I love that therapist you sent to my house. She's absolutely wonderful. My mom is enjoying her. And there's some of that I would get with seeing a client when they would get better, you know, but I hear the satisfaction of the patient and the patient's daughter with one of my employees that it's like, you know, that's rewarding. It really is.
Yeah. And that happens. We don't think that. I remember when I met one of my mentors, he had trained another one of my mentors. So I walked up to him and I had never met him. And I said, hi, I'm Steve Napolitan. And I said, thank you for changing my life. And he's like, what? We just met. And I said, well, you trained so-and-so and they changed my life. So thank you. You know, there is an indirect to it. And when you build an organization like you have, you are touching so many lives, hundreds more a month.
Oh, yeah.
Hundreds more a month than before. And you're orchestrating that. So yeah, you're not touching each of those patients, but it's happening because of what you created.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and also being sensitive to my therapist and what their skill set is, what their likes are, what their qualities are, you know, that I can speak to a new referral and I'll be thinking in my head, I'm going to send it to this.
You're like a matchmaker.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. And that's kind of what you graduate to is now you're doing that matchmaking. And then even we've already talked about the future of your business is that you then train someone else to be the matchmaker, remove yourself even more or duplicate yourself because then now you could expand to even more. Those are all future talks, but it's already so amazing how you're using automation and people. And it's not just your gain, it's everyone's gain. Like you said, you're employing all these people, you're changing those lives, you're physically changing the patient's lives. What an amazing thing. So, I mean, I just like, it's a ripple effect. What you've done, what I'm echoing, I'm just echoing what you said. So it gets really loud for people listening or watching this, that the ripple is real. So these changes, it could be a simple decision, right? Like, oh, I'm going to choose to take more time for me on this calendar. I'm going to choose to hire someone to help me with this admin. I'm going to choose to take this day off to do accounting. These are all like decisions that you made and you did it. And that's why I said it's a teamwork, because I might have given you some of these ideas and then you took it and did it. And then now look at the ripple effect.
Yeah. Well, and also recognizing that, you know, I hired this assistant. Well, she's much better at these certain tasks. I just gave them to her because they were my right? My grief. And I didn't like doing them. And then she's better at it than me.
So why do it?
Yeah, so why do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she likes to do it, you know, so that was also a plus.
And that's what we think sometimes, who in the world would like this? I've thought that, like, oh my gosh, this is a horrible thing to do. And then someone's like, I actually love doing that. You're like, what? And then, because I did them when I was early in business. I'm like, no one would love to do this. This is like, I just have to do it. It's a pain in the butt. And then you actually find someone else loves that task. We're all different.
We're all different. Yeah.
That's what makes diversity in a business so powerful. Because if we were all the same, then it would be horrible. Then nothing would get done, right? If we hated it, or we would do it as long as we could until we were miserable.
But it's also, me taking this less time. It was also so that I could answer the phone when a therapist calls me and says, hey, I'm at
Yeah.
James' house right now and this is going on. And I could give them direction because of just my experience of, been there, done that.
Yep.
And I could give them advice on what to do next.
Well, and I guess that's a case back to like, how much can you do? Because you were running all the admin, you're answering all the phones, and you're seeing patients 6 days a week. Something's going to give, and none of them are as good as they could be because you're all over the place. So by you giving other work to other people, then you're able to answer the phone and do what you're good at, the matchmaking. Like, like, what do they need? Oh, that's not for us. Go call this other place. Oh, it is for us. I have the perfect person, a therapist that can get on that. Call them, now. And you're like, hey, I found another one for you. It's like finding a long lost lover, you're like, yeah, this is a match for you. It's your perfect patient. Go do it. You're moving into, this is where genius comes. I mean, I've done other studies, we've had other interviews, and even one that I did today, where when you do the thing that you're the best at and you do it for a shorter period of time, you actually, so he's an author, and he made a point that geniuses are not all just, like, people think it's just genetic, like you have it, but when they actually studied over a long period of time, there's one study in the book, 30 years, and they took people that were all at a certain level from MIT and all these, and then the people that took care of themselves, they became there's like in the study, there's 3 Nobel Prizes, all these accolades, and then the people that work 17 hours in the lab, because these are all scientists, their careers declined.
Yeah.
And they all were at the same genius level. They were all rated at a high level. And they just watched. And it was interesting. About half the group didn't take care of themselves. And it was all for the passion. They're like, I'm giving my life and blood to the lab, and I'm doing my science.
Right.
And they're doing 17 hours a day like you were. And then some of them became alcoholics, even, like complete deterioration, because they didn't know how to relax.
Right.
They would get home, they couldn't relax, and then they would use substances, all kinds of messes. And the other side, the people that were working like 4 or 5 hours a day, that's what a lot of them were winning prizes, changing the world, and their careers were going. So I mean, like, just looking at this in that light, so like, we're not the only ones talking about this. Other people have done this too, but I think, and maybe this is something going back, and then we'll go forward. But we think we have to. This goes back to the mindset.
Right,
Like, we're supposed to work, like it's a badge of honor. Like, if I don't do this, and a lot of my clients, and I think you even had it, sometimes we have guilt show up. Like, wait a minute, I must not be doing it right because it's not hard.
Right. Or, wait a minute, I'm doing nothing. Shouldn't I be doing something? There's this, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, so maybe talk about that, because we're not alone. I had this. I know you had this. Anyone listening to this that's thinking they want their life to be different are probably thinking it too.
Well, but I also think, a little bit of the upbringing, right? Like,
Yep.
What I saw my parents do, they just worked really hard.
Yep.
And it was tough to make ends meet, but there was this mentality, and they just said, that's what you do in life. You work hard. Money doesn't grow on trees. There was all those kind of expressions of, and I just thought that's what you had to do.
Yeah, so we're making decisions based on external sources, and not unvalid either, because there was a part that worked. I mean, I saw, and it's not always, but I mean, a big part of the United States of America is immigration, and many, and people go, oh, I'm not an immigrant. I'm like, oh, so you're indigenous? And then they're like, no, and I'm like, wait, so you came from somewhere at some point, and maybe it's many generations. For some of us, I know you're not that far. I'm 3rd generation, and I think you're 2nd. So, just watching my family, my grandparents and my parents, it was like we came from southern Italy, and then you just had this opportunity to change your life. And so you just rolled your sleeves up and you worked.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. I'm not trying to undermine that. I mean, like, I did have a better life because of their choices.
Oh, same here.
I have some of my cousins I know in Italy, and, some things were harder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're having a good life there too. I'm not trying to say anything about my family there, but I do talk to them, and there's no reason to do any more because of where they live. It just doesn't work, and like, so like, cause they have dreams. They're like, I would fly to come see you in America as an example. I'm like, oh, why don't you? Oh, I don't have enough money. And then I'm like, oh, why don't you make more money? And they're like, oh, cause they'll take all the money in taxes. They actually did it. They have to go from making what they're making to like 300,000 more in order to make the math work out. Ooh. So if you go into that realm, you actually make less. So it's like if you grow any more. So just as an example, right? So we do live in this opportunity here. It's different. And even, we complain about taxes in our country, but like I've been to other countries and there is an opportunity here still. And I think what happened though, coming back on that in that time, the option was just to do more.
Correct.
But now we're in a different time where we have automation. We have a global workforce. We can work from home. We can use our phone and do things anywhere, right? But while all that's happening, many of us systemically, we're still choosing to work harder. And one of my coaches made a great metaphor. She said, Steve, you have the old Italian coffee grinder like this, even though we can go to any convenience store and go, zzz, just get a grinder. And then every time I was doing it harder, she would go, I'm grinding, for those that are just listening, I'm grinding the grinder with my hand. And so just to this point, I'm making a big point of this, but maybe can you bring it back for your life, Michele, how that mindset was? Because it was there, right? It was like, this is just how it is. So what was it in our work together or what? And I know it was an evolution, because I know it wasn't like one day you're like, oh my gosh, snap my fingers and change. But can you describe that, a little bit of that evolution of like where you were in your mindset to where you are now and how you've given yourself permission? Because I think that might be the word, to give yourself permission to do it. Can you share that journey a little bit?
Well, I mean, I think I didn't recognize that it was not what I wanted. Do you know what I mean? It was just what I knew. It's what my parents did. It's what I saw. It's what I was told, And so to think differently, it was like I was, I don't know, going against them, or those are bad thoughts, or,
Yeah.
But now that I've transformed and I've recognized that was really unhealthy for me. I mean, my dad died at 58. I'm 59. And so, I often think of that of just, he just worked so hard and he got sick.
It's not sustainable.
No.
Like literally.
No, it's not sustainable. And then when I got sick, it was kind of like, okay, this is not, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. So, I had to definitely make it, although I had to make those decisions to change, but it was hard still to make the change because, this little voice inside you is like, you work harder, you work more, you just, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I constantly remind myself that, okay, it's okay. I can let that go.
Yeah.
Or I can assign it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though they may not do it the same way I do it, there's many ways to do the same thing. And to recognize that as long as it's done, people are safe and it's, it's proper.
Yeah.
Then it's okay that they do it differently than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets done. Yeah. And so thank you for that. And so how would you say it is now? Like you just said, it's still an ongoing process. I think you said, but what, where before it was like, this is what I have to do now. How would you describe it now in your mindset?
Well, it's definitely things that I'm doing is what I want to do.
Okay.
The handful of clients that I've kept on my schedule, they're the ones that I want to see, that I have history with, that I enjoy them, that they value what I bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's more of what I want and what I'm comfortable with. It's no longer of, oh, I have to add that extra client at the end of the day. I mean, I'll just say to people, the schedule doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're holding that space for yourself, which then gives all the life-giving things we've already discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Well, and also, my job's very physical.
Yes.
So there was also the component of, my back would hurt, or I tweaked my knee, or, there'd be these certain things. And it's just like, this body, at some point, I can't be working that hard that long,
Well, I mean, 12 patients a day, Michele?
I know, it was crazy. Well, at that time, some of them might have been in the same facility so that, I didn't have to get in my car and drive.
But
or
it's
I
still
might
45
have been
minutes.
Correct. Or might have been seeing a husband and wife, so they were in the same house. But yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, just the 45 minutes times 12, like just add that up. It's crazy.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It wasn't every day, but there were some days.
Okay. I know, but I mean, just I take a breath out of my own self because I've done in other things. I didn't do your field, but I've done like long days and I can know what that feels like. And then to just be like physically doing it, like even like getting a massage, like I see some, massage therapists doing patient after patient and like how did their hands, I mean, that's a lot of,
Yeah.
It's like a baker that's kneading bread all
Oh
the
yeah, I
time,
had my
right?
share of thumb injuries and yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, what a difference. And thank you for going through all these, and maybe we'll hit a few more, but I want to come in, because you've worked with me in different capacities, right? Like as with More Business, More Life, Freedom Council and the mentorship, and then even privately. Maybe if we can just look at those three for a second, like with More Business, More Life, and what I call like all the curriculum, right? That brings in, how would you describe More Business, More Life in your words if someone's looking at this and like how, like what it was for you and the impact it made in your life?
One, that was the first time that I actually took time to just work on my business versus in my business. Yeah. So I was so busy in it that I couldn't see everything. And so it was nice to take time away and to step back and for you to like ask questions. About why are you here? Why are you doing this? Who's the wow client? That for me to work on the business, that I recognize your business is like another entity in the room. There's me, there's my assistant, and there's the business.
Yes.
And the business sometimes, has its own agenda.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to work on it,
yes.
not just always in it.
Yes.
So that's what More Business, More Life did for me. Was to step back and really look at the business of analyzing some things and starting and then looking at numbers, because that's when I was aware of, okay, these where our numbers fall, how many agency, how many private pay, and where we're at, and then recognizing I want this to flip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not even aware of it, because in that way the dashboard, so to speak, was covered up.
I was
you weren't
so
even looking
busy
at it. Yeah.
saying yes to everything.
You couldn't even look at it.
Yeah.
It's like flying the plane with all the dashboard, all those widgets covered up.
And the sun shield up.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, where am I going? Follow my voice, Michelle. Yeah. Yeah.
So that really, was like, okay, my business is another entity in the room. I need to spend time working on it.
Yeah.
And that might be as simple as getting a fax number.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it was just, and one that we could manipulate better, and manage and store and rename stuff. I mean, it sounds simple, but it was something that I just didn't have.
Yeah.
And then the other ones were more, the subsequent things I worked on with you were more personal,
Yeah.
That it was more, well, what do you want out of this? And to plan your fun first. And, we only live once, right? And this whole...
Do you think that you got some of that in More Business, More Life, or was that when you went into the Freedom Council mentorship?
I would say that was later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I got a taste of it in More Business, More Life, and it subsequently came because I was recognizing, okay, I have to step back in order to run it well.
Yep.
But the subsequent programs was more, what do you want?
Yeah.
Make a list. If you could dream.
Yes.
If you could visualize, where would you be? What do you want 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
So now just picking on Freedom Council mentorship, what would you say the biggest thing from that was?
Well, it was probably you hounding me because I was always putting up resistance, I can't do this, or, I don't want to do this, and I didn't quite understand why, But you definitely were like, Michelle, in order to go to the next step, you've got to see less patients. So I think that constantly having this input of like, okay, well, we see this isn't working because you're seeing too many patients,
Yes. Yeah.
So having this voice, Steve.
I've had other clients say that. What would Steve do? Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like just having consistency with someone in your corner, so that they can see you, because like as a founder, CEO, being the leader of your company, who are we reporting to? So we're managing all these people, and it's not that you're reporting to me, but just someone else to observe you and then say, hey, Michelle, what about this? What about that? Or because sometimes, like you said, you're in the business so much, you're not working on it, and you don't know what you can't see.
Right.
So then I was just that, you could be a fly on the wall, but I'm like over there and I'm like, hey, Michelle, you're missing all that. And you weren't even, what? Oh, on the right? Oh, I didn't even
Exactly.
see that. So, but it is, and that's, I think, what I'm hearing from you though, and that is a big thing about mentorship, because that's why I get mentorship, because I can't see what I can't see. It's hard to look in the mirror and change our life, but when we have someone in a consistent manner, like 6 months or years.
Yeah, and even just questions, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you ever thought of this? And then it would be kind of like, wow, no, never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And then to go down that direction. Yeah, it was helpful. Definitely helpful.
Well, thank you. And the reason I'm asking these questions too is because for other people to hear and understand this, because someone else might be listening to this and not understand, So I guess in that, with all the value that you received and all these things, if someone was watching this and they're like, oh, I want what you have, like, what would you recommend?
Well, I definitely think it's good to have a business coach, and this concept of even, you're not a therapist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I then had to explain what I was doing, which was also a process of why am I doing it that way?
Yeah.
And so I think that was helpful, being that, some people might be resistant. Oh, Steve doesn't own a pizza shop. How can he give me direction?
Yeah.
But it's this sense that it's an outsider looking in.
Yes.
So there's something real positive about that.
Yeah, I once had a photographer ask me. She said, "Oh my gosh, I really feel compelled to work with you, but you're not a photographer." I mean, I did say, "Well, actually, I went to film school," and they're like, "Oh, really? Well, I know a few things about cameras, but I was not a still photographer by profession," and that's what she was. And I said, well, let me ask you this. Are you looking for me to tell you what f-stop to do, what lens to use, all those things? Is that what you're seeking? Or are you seeking business advice, how to build a business? And she said, oh, no, I'm a professional photographer. I already have that schooling. I don't need that. And I said, okay, then what are you looking? I needed to know how to run a business. Okay, well, I'm an expert in that.
Right.
And I did that going to art school. I really realized this is not show play, it's show business. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn the business. So I am an artist in that way, learned how to be a business person because of necessity. And I guess it goes in that same line. If you're a young physical therapist still trying to figure out how to be a physical therapist, maybe I wouldn't be your person. But you were a seasoned physical therapist when I met you. There was not much, if all, that I could tell you or anything about being a physical therapist, but how you approach doing physical therapy as a business, that's where my mind lights up. And I'm like, oh, well, let's play. Like, what strategy can we do? Right. And so I think that's the difference. So in your point, if you're looking for a mentor or coach, what is it that you need? If you need to learn to be a baker, then you probably should hang out with a baker. But if you want to learn how to have multiple bakeries and build a business and have other people baking with you, then that's my game. Right? So
that's what I would say to people.
Yeah.
That, it's not, you could have a mentor within your profession if you wanted to, get a certain certification.
Yeah. And you still do.
Oh,
how many new things are you still learning? Yes.
Oh, I just took a class last spring concerning Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Got a new certification. So I'm always learning.
Yep.
But when it comes to actually running the business, I think you need, like you said, I can't necessarily see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm just going through motions, and it's nice to have somebody go, well, why are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, I have a few more things, but I guess just one more time. I did ask this a few times, but were there any other results that's come out of this that we didn't talk about yet? Or do you think we hit all the main ones?
Well, I think we did.
Okay. I just thought I'd open it up just if there's something that you thought was significant enough that I did not ask you.
I would just say that the results are more balanced. The result is the business is strong. The result is my employees are happy. The result is, I can have a stable income. Like I can draw my paycheck every month and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And also, I have more vision of where the company might be able to go from here. Yeah. I have a lot of ideas and, this one might not come to fruition, but, this other one 2 years down the road, I see things happening.
Yeah. And add on all of that, well, you did all that, you more than doubled your business.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah. And throwing that in a different spin, out of all of this, what do you think was the most valuable?
Well, I would say learning to take care of self, right? That idea of, having a conversation about meditation and self-care and, what is it that you want to hang your hat on, and
Yeah.
it's like, what, I want to get a dog, I want to walk my dog, I want to go to yoga, I want to spend time at the beach, there's all those things those are what I wanted, and I have them now.
You live at the beach.
I know, dude.
Yes, all those things that came true because you asked for them and then we designed it.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
it. We designed it and made it come to fruition. It's like building a house. You make the architectural plan, you get all the things in order, you get the budget in order, and then you build the house. So, and you did that. I just pointed. I always say I'm the guy with the lights on the tarmac, but you were the pilot, and you did all that, and now you have this life, Michele. I'm so happy, so happy for you. Yeah. So
yeah, no,
beautiful.
I am too. I mean, there's all these little things of I'll be walking along the bluff and the beach, and I'm just smiling. There's like this joy that I have inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. I think we hit it. So the only one that I had left on here is what's next? Like, so now that you've had this thing, like what's on the horizon for Michele?
Well, several things. One, I want the yoga to be 3 or 4 times a week. So I'm working on that. Right now it's 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
I might do a yoga certification. I'm thinking that,
nice.
Just for the personal learning of it.
Yeah.
And who knows if I ever do anything else with it, but to actually be a certified yoga teacher would be nice.
Well, you'll be at a next level in it. Yeah.
And then just, expanding. I mean, more hiring. We got 30 people working for us. I'd like to see it, 40, 45 people. I'd like to be able to say when I get a referral that, I try to staff it as quickly as possible, but some of my therapists are pretty busy. So, just to continue growth in that pattern and to try to instill in some of my therapists too, the importance of taking care of self and not getting burnt out,
Yeah. So pass the baton, teach this to your team. Yeah.
And then I want to work, I'd like to be that I'm only seeing clients like maybe once a week, and that I can still step in and help my therapist when they need it, if they've got a question about something, or do a co-treat. And I've done more of that.
Yeah.
Actually, in the last 6 months, where a therapist will say, could you just come help me with, Mr. Smith? I'm not quite sure about this, or I need a second pair of hands to see if, he's capable of doing something. And
Right.
Yeah. And so more of that, and then travel.
Yeah.
It is something I want to do.
Yeah.
More. So.
Yeah. And you're going to do it. So you have a trip already planned this year to leave the country, or you're just about,
Oh, yeah.
Nice. So 2 more big trips then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I'm just thoroughly happy, and I'm so glad that you can share this. And so before we wrap up, it's like anyone listening, especially like we were talking about being a woman-owned business and being the CEO founder of your business, it's so important. So I just want to first thank you for doing this, because how many other men and women, but on the women's side, to empower them that you can have a business, that you can thrive and make a living and employ other people and live the life that you want, just by sharing this or showing that it's possible. So I don't know. So I guess just one more opening for you. If there's anything out there, like whether someone's been in business for years, because even when we met, you had already been in business for years. It wasn't like Brent, you weren't a startup, you were already doing this. So someone that's in business, or they're thinking of starting a business and they're out there, is there anything that you want to, with what you know now, what would you say? What would be if you could give them like 1 or 2 things?
Well, I think for the women out there that might be wanting to start a business, that, you can do this. Yeah. You're more than capable. Surround yourself with people that recognize that women can do this. Yes. And that would have to be Steve, really. Thank you. Because you weren't, minimizing me in any way. I mean, you were acknowledging that I own my own business. Revenue's over $1 million a year.
Yeah.
And the idea that it's not small change, and it might be a small business, but it's big to me.
Yeah.
And I've had plenty of men in my course of this business of putting me down, telling me I can't do it, telling me that, don't worry your pretty little head, you'll never earn enough money, And so to have you just, it doesn't matter that I'm a woman. You know what I mean? So and I think to say to other women out there, you've got to find your tribe, right?
Yeah.
That find people that agree with your philosophy, that like what you're doing, and that aren't going to tear you down just because, you're a female.
Yeah, and you don't have to even do that. It goes back, like, if that's happening, move away from those people.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had a
it's
tax
like the
guy.
wow.
Yeah, that just, the things he said to me, I thought, okay, I have to change my tax guy.
Yeah.
That he doesn't see the vision that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice because you were able to say, Michelle, I see your vision, and I visualize more.
I do that sometimes. And you did, so you've done all the things you wanted and more.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And you can do it. It doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter who you are. Like, all these things are open to all of us human beings.
And I think if you have that desire to have your own business and to be your own boss, this idea that you have a thought, you can make it happen. You definitely can. You just got to have support along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing I think we don't do enough. I know I didn't ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
We think, because like for me, I don't know how it was for you, but I thought it was like a weakness, that I was like being weak or I wasn't good enough, that I had to even ask. So for a long time, I didn't ask.
Well, and I also think I had a little bit of a component of perfectionism.
Okay.
That I have to do it. I'm the only one that's capable of doing this, which is really a silly thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
many people can do what I do, right?
Yeah. And that's okay. And that's a good thing, because many hands make light work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. Well, I think this is good. Like, we covered a lot of ground. I think it's pretty good. And there are a lot of things. And so I hope that you listening or watching this, that you got a lot of value from this. And, Michelle and I, we did this because we want to help you. And the whole idea of More Business, More Life, and this podcast is so that we can give these gifts to you. And so if you're listening to this and you're a part of our newsletter, please hit reply and tell us what was the most valuable part that you got from this conversation with Michelle and I. And we will reply, yes, we actually read this stuff. And then we reply. And if you're not on our newsletter, it's really easy. All you have to do is text WOW to 72,000. That's 72000, And when you text WOW to that number, then it's going to prompt you to join our newsletter, and it's free. And then you'll be notified of these things and more that we give to you so that you can have more business and more life. It is really my mission to help as many people have the freedom that they desire, and that's why we have episodes like this where we can share that. So until our next episode, I always remind everyone, choose gratitude and create freedom. Thanks for listening or watching. Thanks for listening to the More Business, More Life podcast. I hope you got value. And if you did, we have so many more things for you at stevenapolitan.com. You'll be able to connect with us on social media. We are active. You can ask us questions. I look forward to having you on the next show. Until then, remember, choose gratitude and create freedom.